to our group, and then we make the decisions on whether to support it in these bigger channels. And then sync is just something that's a priority for the company, so it's something that we're looking to support, and this seems like the best possible fit for really educating and engaging people in explaining what sync is. It's obviously a little complicated.
So the Foursquares of the world, where do they go to in Amex? They go to you guys or somebody else?
No, they go to a different department, and then those offers get created into the system and uploaded and live, and then we're just selling them.
Yeah, you've got a lot of people, working towards it, because we've got a merchant end, right? So we've got the merchant arm, we've got a business development team who actually creates the Foursquare-like products, and then our team that actually promotes them. So it works pretty well, together. And a company that large, it's actually pretty feasible.
Right. So once someone gets this panorama, what do they do with it?
That's a great question. There was a couple of reasons. I think we originally had some ideas of what we would like it to do, but there was definitely a lot of limitations from our legal and privacy perspective. You don't own the photo that you're going to be putting out there, so ideally it would have been socially shareable, but we still felt like it was really exciting to experience something a little bit more in an ad unit where you're getting something that's yours, that you're passionate about, that you're kind of creating.
So can they share it now in any way, or just see it?
They just see it.
And then it goes away?
We're a bank holding company, so not so much reading that.
No, we have Bank of America here this morning with the same kinds of issues.
Yeah.
What's really interesting is that it's companies like Bank of America and so forth that are really sort of managing this monstrous back end that everyone's going to, and you're extremely, as organizations, you're very highly regulated in terms of what you can do. So how do you, as innovators, obviously, how does the innovation reconcile with that?
Yeah, it becomes pretty challenging. I think compliance is a word that our team tends to shy away from, but it's obviously a necessary evil. I think that as long as you know you kind of have to go through those extra steps, we've still been able to innovate fairly quickly, I argue, and I think it's just holding hands and knowing that you're going to have to go through these rigorous processes, building in time for that, and then just moving forward with that.
And then there are a lot of agencies here. In terms of your relationship with that, you develop this with the company A, and then you want to get it promoted outside into your mainstream, say TV advertising, whatever. How do you do that?
We partner with Mindshare as our media agency of record, who sort of brought the opportunity to us. They are sitting across all channels, and so they sort of oversee any media advertising that comes through, and they can figure out where it might make sense to leverage this. So we've been able to leverage this asset across the Zoom network as well as Apple iAd network, which is something we had never done before in terms of creating something once and using it multiple places. So it actually worked out really nice.
And you're doing this with Android?
Yeah,
across all everything you're doing is cross-platform.
Yeah.
Is that sort of one of your internal rules?
No, but at this point, if you want to get at scale, I mean, I know everyone talks about iPhone, but the penetration numbers are there. So I think to get at the scale of a missing piece, you need to make sure that you're partnering with them, which is why I think Zemobi was so great. They've somehow found a way to penetrate all devices and sort of just act as a network across all devices.
Right. So what do you guys do next? Because we don't know about it.
I can't say.
Speculate.
I think that we'll definitely continue exploring and testing in the mobile space. Brian brought up the point, it's not really at the peak of where it could be in terms of ad dollars. I think that it's often planned last, but actually, at least for the past year, I think we've been planning for mobile first, and what does that mean, develop that, and then how does that translate into other campaigns, which is pretty different for, especially our company.
Now, are you looking at demographics in terms of usage, male, female, age, that sort of thing?
Yeah, we'll look at that. We were more looking at which types of apps people were using, just to see what kind of interaction we had with different audiences. The demographics mirror what our card member demographics are, so you can imagine what that would be. But things like MSNBC or the Today Show app, we were seeing really high engagement with. So I thought that was interesting.
And I know Amex is a big time into tiering, with Platinum, Centurion, and so forth. Are you finding that these kinds of things, this sort of Apple and that sort of thing, is gravitating towards your higher end cardholder pattern, or the lower, or the middle, or is it all across all of them?
Yeah, I don't know that we looked at the segment between different cardholders because a lot of people own a lot of them, so it's hard to say. And sometimes people choose to sync a card with the network for a particular reason or another. So.
And lastly, are you looking at this also as customer acquisition in terms of new credit card holders? Because if you don't have an Amex, you can't sync it, kind of thing?
Sort of, yeah. I mean, we're looking at it, we're looking at grants or products that can disrupt their thinking of our brand and think differently. I mean, I think it's a big leap to ask them to then get a card and then sync. But if it changes the way that they think about Amex and what we do as a company, then that's success for us.
It's this is one execution part of a much larger campaign that is supposed to be getting at prospect envy and creating this notion of, oh wow, I really want that membership and things that go along with it, sync being one of them.
In your group, do you not care, that's part of the one I ask it, but do you ignore the 48% who don't have smartphones?
We don't ignore them. That's what TV is for. No, I think that we recognize that. I think to date we have a customer base that I'd argue is a lot higher penetration than 40 in terms of smartphone usage, but we definitely are venturing in other media opportunities, but we're not leaving anyone out.
But just to add one more thing, I also think that if you don't have a smartphone, you're not going to sync your card. Like, this is a capability that's just not relevant to you, so it's okay.
Losers.
It's okay.
Not anyone else.
Chances are you're not going to be checking into a Foursquare special to take advantage of it.
Right. Any other audience questions? Please join me. Thank you. Liz. Great stuff. There's more stuff they can't tell you. If we can have the panelists come up. I know the panelists here. Actually, I hope the panelists here. You grab Jordan outside.
Very relevant. Nice to meet you.
So when I was programming this conference over the last couple of months, we looked at what is the big issue from an advertiser standpoint. We've got this issue of the size of ads and apps within apps and ads within apps and video and so forth. And one of the big issues that we looked at is the timing of the ad. When people are at a certain location, what is the best method that you're going to be able to reach them in terms of effective? So let me give you some background. New innovation and capabilities to deliver highly targeted messages to mobile shoppers based on their proximity to stores and even products provides brands and marketers great challenges and opportunities. There's no one better to lead the exploration of the issue of getting the right ad to the right time than Jordan Greene. Jordan has been on the forefront of mobile for 15 years now,
and heads up the mobile advisory practice at MellaMedia. He's advised clients on developing real mobile strategies on how to get the most out of their mobile investments, working with companies including Publishers Clearinghouse, PCH, IDT Telecom, the Knicks, and the Rangers. He's been a longtime contributor to MediaPost and OMMA events, and he's a longtime friend of MediaPost. Please join me in welcoming Jordan Greene.
So I guess we got to get to that cleanup for the day. I encourage everybody to try to hang around until the very end, even though there's cocktails beckoning downstairs. All right, my name is Jordan Greene, and I do head up the practice for mobile media, let me try that again, the mobile advisory practice for MellaMedia. We advise 3 different groups of clients primarily. On one side, we have the buyers of the industry, which end up being brands, agencies, and media companies because they don't know quite where to stick them. Companies which have either done mobile before and need to do a lot better, get that crazy ROI out of it, or looking to get into mobile for the first time. On the other side of the aisle end up being the sellers of the marketplace. So those end up being mobile developers, mobile advertising platforms, crazy subsets of each, whose biggest challenge in life is they all get thrown into one bucket and labeled as mobile by the buyers of the market. And then the third leg of the stool ends up being the investment community. So companies which would like to buy into those shiny objects on the mobile world, but lack the verbiage and understanding of the marketplace, help them go out and acquire companies, and help those mobile companies get themselves acquired up the funnel. We call it knowing the true pulse of mobile, as we live in between a lot of these worlds. But one of the things, the commonalities that we have to advise our clients on right now more than anything is what you need is a mobile strategy. Mobile tactics are only getting more complex, and you need a solid infrastructure and a direction in order to be able to take action and be prepared. There's no place that is actually more true than the end-to-end funnel for retail, because it's precisely one of the areas that is so complicated, it's getting more so. This isn't a new story though. In the 1990s, this tale was very simple. I was going to be walking down the street, and the Palm 7 in my pocket was going to start shaking as I walked by the Gap. I'd pull it out, I'd pop up the antenna, and I would be told that I could get a free t-shirt with every pair of jeans that I bought. Sounds like a pretty good deal, even now. 90s, same tale, different players. So now we've removed the Palm 7, we've replaced it with the Motorola Razr, and the Gap, I guess, became out of fashion, and everybody was using Starbucks. Same story. Phone was going to shake. They're going to drive me into stores. The truth was, it got to the point where if I heard, I mean, this says to me as a marketer, if I heard one more company come in and pitch that they could deliver the right message to the right person at the right time, I really was going to get sick. But what we had in 2007 was a really cataclysmic change. It was the next evolution of the smartphone. And the iPhone, and I hate to be that guy, really did start changing everything. Now we started having a real audience. We started having access to things called apps, and we had available geolocation, push notifications, amongst other things, and it upped the ante. And it changed that story into a real reality. But along with this reality came even more confusion to the table. So now we've got lots of new vendors, and we've got lots of new approaches, and we've got lots of new promises. So the panel today has the lofty task of trying to untangle this web and start to lay some groundwork for what is the real. I'll let you guys introduce yourself one at a time, and we'll go from there. Alphabetically.
First names, apparently so. Hi, I'm Andy Wasef. I head up mobile and emerging platforms for MEC, which is one of WPP's media and communications agencies.
Michael Bordash, CTO of Xtify. We provide real-time push notification marketing services for iOS, Android, mobile web that incorporates geolocation and other dynamic segment targeting criteria.
Candela. I head the mobile practice at PhD. PhD is a communications planning and media buying agency, part of OMMA Media Group, where I spend time with clients and the strategy team of the agency to help them understand the opportunities and the challenges of the mobile marketplace.
Ken Cassar, the Nielsen company. I work with our advertiser clients on helping them understand what's going on digitally from both an advertising perspective as well as a consumer engagement perspective.
My name is Craig Davis. I'm CEO of Relevvant. We work with large brands, retailers, CPG companies, media companies. We help them build their audiences, understand who their audiences are, and help them engage with them in the right way.
Got it. So if we were looking at the overall retail funnel, if you will, at the front end of it is how do we get people in the stores? Does mobile actually deliver, I don't know, the ultimate in relevance and the opportunity to deliver the right messaging? Michael, actually, I'm starting off with you, and you've got a pretty good intercontinental story.
Yeah, we actually have quite a few Fortune 1000 companies that have incorporated Xtify's geolocation services within their mobile applications. Intercontinental is probably one of the more progressive use cases, H&M, Discover, Card, and others. Intercontinental actually incorporates push notification within their key user retention programs. For example, when you book a room at an Intercontinental hotel in the city, we're going to know, Xtify is going to know about that transaction, and we're going to know where that user is in their travels on their way to that hotel. So as you land in Miami, for example, Xtify is going to know that you're in Miami, and the marketer will be able to present a custom message to that person based on their buying history, based on their location of the airport. Welcome to Miami. Here's some promotional material from our partners in the area, and here's a special message from the management, again, based on your rewards criteria, etc. H&M as well, they use a considerable amount of our services that incorporate couponing. So as you approach an H&M in 30 markets around the globe, they're going to get your, they're going to combine your demographic information with your location to present you with relevant couponing based on your geo.
So you're able to trip up, bring together all these, different pieces of data, with the trigger being that you just happen to know where they were when they got.
Exactly, and I think statistics don't lie. With a traditional push notification campaign, we're seeing about 20 to 30% open rates. With geo, it's approaching 60 to 70% open rates in your campaigns.
And if you took that a step further and started integrating even more CRM data, Craig, how does that make our world look?
The CRM data is really important. Purchasing data is even more important. If a brand understands the SKUs that are correlated with other, or purchasing SKUs that are correlated with other purchasing SKUs, they can actually present highly correlated purchases to that user at the right place at the right time. So what we're trying to do, and we're working with some interesting retailers as well, but what we're trying to do is to help them send that right message to the right person. So if I'm a male who likes sports and I'm a fan, or I'm a customer of a large brand, they're able to send me the a shirt that goes with the jeans that I bought a week ago. So what we're doing is we're bringing in the CRM data, the purchasing data, and psychographic data together to present the right message.
So your company brings a platform that's right in the middle that brings in lots of different data elements in order to bring it and push it out through different mechanisms, right?
Right. It sits in front of the SMS service providers, the email service providers, the push notification service providers, and basically aggregates all of that data and creates a 360-degree view on each person. And with that, we understand the purchasing, the interests, the psychographics of that person, and we've seen outsized performance in messaging to those people based on that.
Okay. So now you guys combined, you got me into the store. Actually, a while back, a Best Buy team shared with me a really terribly kept secret that they saw as an internal challenge. They were really concerned that people were walking around their stores, seeing what they wanted, and then buying it from Amazon. They didn't like the idea about being a showroom for Amazon. But the technology that we've given to all these people, isn't it really just kind of reigniting, I don't want to call it a war, but between brick and mortar and online businesses? In some ways, hasn't mobile technology, now that it's so pervasive, let's call it 50% plus smartphones or smart devices out in the marketplace, does it really make the whole world one large showroom? This is more of a question for a combination of data and audience.
Yeah, and we've definitely seen that consumers are using smartphones in the store. There's no question about that. The reality, though, is that most of what they're using smartphones for in the store is talking and texting. However, there is some engagement with retail-related activities, and that has freaked out guys like Best Buy. On the flip side of it, we have a free rider equation going in the other direction, where there are a lot of people that are doing research at home on Amazon and sites like that, and then going into the store very well informed, knowing what the prices are. There's a big battle between the brick and mortar retailers and the pure play guys right now as to who is free riding off of the other more. And the reality is that consumers are doing it, they're going to do it, and it's kind of pointless to try to fight it. And I think some of the smarter guys, Best Buy is a good example, with a recent red laser announcement of someone that's kind of embracing the way consumers are engaging with it. But I do think we want to be careful that we don't get too far ahead of ourselves. There is a lot of smartphone penetration. It is happening in stores. And when we look at individual activities, we do see that people are doing a lot of this stuff, but the engagement today is still relatively shallow. The QR codes is a great example. The majority of people don't know what QR codes are. 27% know what they are and have used them at least once. 13% of people sometimes will utilize a QR code. 3% of people regularly utilize QR codes. And I think that's the story of a lot of what we see in mobile right now. There's a little bit of engagement, people are trying things out, but we need to be careful that we don't get too far ahead of ourselves until we really start to see heavy doses of consumer engagement.
It's funny, if you stumble into the wrong mobile conference or read the wrong mobile article, everybody's using QR codes, everybody. It's incredible how broad generalization like that, not quite true. You know, and today I saw that the US Post Office is now giving a 2% discount to any company which wants to start using QR codes on its mailing. I think when the post office gives you like the big thumbs up, that's like the kiss of death. Andy, what are you guys seeing? You guys work with companies like Macy's, and there's showrooming as a concept going on?
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point it's undoubtedly happening, but the point's well made that we often as an industry overestimate some of the behaviors out there. It is happening, and most retailers are concerned, and Amazon is absolutely the 100-pound gorilla in every room for every retailer, but the reality is that people are still buying a lot of stuff in physical retail environments. And there's benefits to that mobile behavior as well. We can look at the negatives about price checking, etc. But there are definite opportunities for retailers to utilize mobile behavior in stores to their advantage. One simple example, actually not from Macy's or IKEA, but people are creating shopping lists using their mobile phones, right? And general knowledge in retail, you don't want people to create lists before they go in store because it reduces what they're actually going to spend their money on. Now, you can actually utilize that to your advantage. There are retailers out there, such as Walmart, who are actually recognizing that this is consumer behavior, that people are doing it, no point fighting it. But you can use it for your advantage by actually thinking about how can you inspire people when they're using their phone in a store, looking up an item, what complementary items can you suggest to them? If that's CPG, what recipe items? You're seeing examples of supermarkets providing those kind of recipe suggestions or CPG brands. Same if you're a clothing retailer suggesting complementary items for that. So you can fight it, or you can use it to your advantage and roll with it. And I think we're starting to see some of the big retailers out there as well trying to utilize it to their advantage.
So you are seeing consumers actually in stores using some kind of device. Let's call it the mobile phone, just to keep it simple for now. They're using their mobile phone to research the items that they're looking at on the shelves themselves.
Yeah, I mean, the primary behavior is price checking and quality checking, right? So checking consumer reviews about items and checking prices. Reality is that's not just people from lower incomes. I think more and more people generally utilizing smartphones while they're shopping and becoming more price sensitive. So the recent study from colleagues at Group M looking into showrooming and the different price points at which people will leave the store to then go and buy elsewhere or buy online. It's actually fascinating that when you then correlate that with the household income, it's people with relatively high household incomes are still price sensitive and still doing that price checking. There's a portion of people who will never leave the store they're in to go and buy something elsewhere, and that's great for them. But for a large percentage of people out there, they are checking price, are checking quality. And there's an unprecedented price and quality transparency now.
For me, what I absolutely love about mobile, and I think is great and interesting, it's an incredibly intimate environment to connect to people. But at the same time, it's acting as a disruptive force to businesses as a whole. And it's actually forcing them to try to reevaluate what they're doing. Ultimately, are we going to be walking through retailers and the price that you see on the shelf is really just a guide? Do I get to start negotiating on the spot, saying, I see you're offering it for $5, but the guy across the street's got it for $4. Is that really what we're going to start moving towards?
I've seen the research and everything that you guys mentioned about showrooming, and you see the percentage anywhere from 25 to 59% of people, depending on what research you're looking at, says that people are taking their device out and they are looking for comparison pricing and things of that nature. But the reality is that retailers can take advantage of this and really embrace it, right? I think Best Buy, you mentioned, did a great job of this. Other retailers, if they promote the opportunity to not just price compare, but product compare, they can really be an ally to the consumer. But if you think about it also from the CPG side of things, we have a client that recently launched a product, and it was a product that was sold in major retailers across the country. And what we did was wanted to engage with the consumer inside of the store itself. And so what we did is we partnered with one of these an apps that has a gamified shopping experience. And what we did is we created engagement opportunities to have consumers learn more about the brand, find out about it and what it does and what it is. And we knew at that point that somebody was in store, but there was a lot of options for them to choose from based upon whatever the product category was. And ultimately we did a survey, and we saw that 59% of people that engaged with the product with this gamified experience had an opportunity or indicated that they would purchase the product in the future. So I think there are a lot of opportunities for CPG inside of the retail space, kind of getting beyond just within the proximity of the store itself.
So if we've got the consumer now, we got them from the parking lot, and we got them to the store, you guys have got them scanning, researching, and buying stuff. Now we move them to the cash register, where mobile payment is the newest, shiniest thing in the room that everyone wants to pay attention to this year. And that's okay. It's important, and it's something that is going to continue to be evolving. But a couple things I wanted to throw at you. If it's a shiny thing in the room, and the poster child for the shiny thing seems to be something called near-field communications, or NFC, is it something that we actually have to pay attention to? And I'm going to throw you a couple of things at you and tell me what you think. Phil Schiller from Apple said in an interview recently that it's not clear that NFC is the solution to any current problem. To back that up even further, the engineering of the iPhone 5 would actually not allow NFC chips to work, even if they stuck one in there. ComScore, I apologize to my Nielsen brethren next one, claims that the iPhone now accounts for about 1/3 of all smartphones in the United States, and retailers, small or big, complain that they do not want to change over their 1970s point-of-sale systems in order to be able to accommodate these new chipsets. So I'm going to come back. Do we need to care about NFC?
I'll take that on. It's interesting, Apple, iPhone, and it not being NFC enabled was interesting. I find it really interesting to see what the likes of Square and PayPal are doing, where they're almost looking at it and saying, in essence, what's the phone bringing to the party here when it comes to mobile payments? If I can just utilize your existing information that I have, and you just need to remember a password, a login and a password, to then enable those payments through PayPal, through Square, through potentially iTunes. Do you need the phone itself to be making that contactless but still close payment, or can you just circumvent that entirely? And that to me is fascinating. And I was one in 2007 who was a big believer in NFC. I remember one of my clients back in the UK and Europe was Visa, and we talked to them a lot about NFC. By 2012, Nokia were predicting that more than 50% of their phones in the market were going to be NFC enabled. We were going to get in there early, and we come to 2012, and I don't know what percentage, but it's a small percentage of phones in the market are NFC enabled. So I don't think you can discount it, but it's interesting to see what some of the payment players out there are doing.
I mean, I think a real interesting. Does anybody in the room have an NFC installed, and a phone that has NFC chips in it? I got one. Have you ever bought anything with it?
Yes.
Wow. That's one out of, I don't know, still 50. Okay, continue down. Sal, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're absolutely right. It's the easiest transaction that we have is cash or paying with a credit card by tapping on something, right? So if the value of using NFC for payments is the opportunity to have a faster transaction, I'm not sure how that's much quicker than taking out your credit card and just tapping on a machine to pay for something. But I do think that NFC is very interesting from the opportunity that a marketer can use it for, where we can put tags on out of home, put tags in print, put tags in retail environments, where we can ask the consumer to engage in a more frictionless interaction as opposed to something with QR codes, because they download an app, scan it, wait for something to load. NFC provides the opportunity for marketers to be able to let the consumer learn more about the brand in a much easier fashion. I think that's the area that I'd be paying attention to with NFC, and although the payment stuff will come along, probably at a slower pace.
Well, instead of waiting for that slower pace, couldn't we do that today with geolocation and push notifications for someone like Xtify?
Well, certainly. And in fact, I think The iOS Passbook might offer even more relevant opportunity, more closer to us at this point. Because with the Passbook, you're able to engage with the consumer at that point of transaction within your store. You book a pass on your phone, it's right there on your deck. And then be able to engage with that marketer as they approach that utilization of that pass. Whether it's, again, in the hospitality industry, you're checking in a hotel, you've bought tickets to a concert, you're able to market it to that person using existing tools and existing relationships that you have already within your application.
From a Nielsen standpoint, what do you guys think about this stuff?
So currently, mobile payment numbers are relatively light. I wouldn't be quick to write it off. I think I probably wouldn't be particularly tempted to stand up on top of a really tall crate though and trumpet it. In my mind, the problem to be solved, and for those of you that don't live in the suburbs, everybody that lives in the suburbs has keychains with 15 or 12 different little things that hang off, barcodes that are your loyalty programs. In my mind, that is the problem, and that payment mechanisms may get sort of layered onto those. But I do think there's a convenience play to be had. I don't know that I would start with payments. I think payments lag other safer things.
I'd like to think that a couple $100 million of technological development is more advanced than getting rid of 14 pieces of plastic in my pocket, though. From a CRM standpoint, how do all these things come together in a way that actually makes sense for the consumer?
Well, so one of our issues is that we're not really trying to solve today's problems for a lot of these companies. And today's problems is really understanding who your user is, who your customer is, and how to present the most relevant marketing to them. We were talking about searching, price checking. We haven't seen a whole lot of that, but what we've seen, a behavior that we see a lot are girls in the mall checking in via Facebook or Foursquare saying we're in the mall hanging out with each other. We have the technology that with that check-in that everyone here has done, or most of us here has done, with that check-in you get a text message, a push notification, or an email sent to you with relevant messaging. So we're really trying to figure out what those behaviors are, attach triggers to those, and then attach relevant marketing to those. And in the store, we are connected to loyalty programs, we are connected to purchasing and the existing POS systems so that they can leverage that existing data, that existing dynamic data, and understand who their users are to be able to target the right type of marketing to them with the right type of SKUs.
I'd agree with that approach. And it's one of the things that we preach, and I use that term lightly to our clients, is that mobile really is less about the technology itself and more about the creative usage of it. And what this does, it allows us to poke into what the consumers are doing today. While we wait for tomorrow, we can still do a lot of stuff today. So behaviorally, Andy, what are we seeing consumers are doing regarding retail as a whole, from end-to-end funnel? Where are things you think that are accessible today for marketers, and where does tomorrow start looking like?
Sure, so we look at it from the consumer perspective, and there's a bunch of questions in any consumer journey which people are asking themselves a good proportion of. From what items do I get, where can I buy those, can I get them cheaper anywhere else, do I buy it now, do I buy it in store, if I'm going in store, how do I find that store, once I'm in the store, how do you make this, what's often a painful experience, much easier for me, more convenient, what other information can you give me about this product or complementary products, if I'm buying it now, do I really have to line up behind those 20 people at the checkout, etc., etc. And increasingly, consumers are looking to their mobile first for the answers to those, and there are, products and devices and applications throughout that whole consumer journey, as well as post-purchase that we're seeing in market now, which retailers are utilising either a combination of or all of them. Great example, two in the US, Walmart and Walgreens, who are doing a fantastic job of utilising mobile services and utility throughout that consumer journey with them, and Tesco in the UK, where I'm from originally. Those three, for me, great examples of retailers using mobile throughout that to answer consumers' questions.
I'm going to open it up. If anybody's got questions, just put up your hand, we'll hand you a microphone, but I'm going to keep asking. Oh, there's one.
One of the
state your name and company.
Sure, I'm Sanjay with Pickup. One of the questions that we've been trying to figure out is, on the web you have this amazing opportunity for direct response ROI advertising because you can see the consumer all the way through the purchase. With mobile, you potentially have that opportunity in retail. Everybody I've talked to though says that you're so far away from making the ROI work today that it's not even worth thinking about because reaching people when they're near a store and you sort of add up the amount of impressions you can buy there at a reasonable rate and then driving them into the store and measuring that. Everybody says it's so far from, stick with the brand metrics, don't even try to go to ROI. I'd be interested in your thoughts about that.
Yeah, and if we look at the development of online, it really did start with the banner, which was all about branding. It didn't really go anywhere. Online was really kind of on the ropes until about 2003, 2001 or so, when Google's direct response model really started to click. And then if we fast forward 8 or 9 years, display has started to come back, and I would argue that display brand-oriented advertising is going to account for the lion's share of dollars going forward. I think there is going to be a lot of temptation for folks to build out marketing programs that are going to be accountable on a direct response basis. And I think it's probably going to slow adoption down because I think you're right. I think it's going to be really, really tough to prove whether or not that stuff works. I advise my clients that this is a place that they've got to dabble. They've got to play around. I was working closely with Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, and Borders back in the late 90s. And obviously one of those guys did well. Borders outsourced e-commerce to Amazon. They're not with us anymore. Barnes & Noble maintained their own operation kind of through relatively difficult times. They lost a lot of share, but they're still around. And actually their Nook, the Nook part of their business, is actually the most valuable part of the enterprise right now. So to be out there dabbling is important, but yeah, I do worry about getting too deep into direct response right now.
I challenge that just a tiny bit, not much, but there's definitely challenges generally in mobile and measurement. And if we were to concentrate on the brand and attitudinal metrics, the current 300-person survey, brand survey, is just simply not going to be the answer. It's not satisfactory. I don't know how many times anybody in this room has sat through those now, but it feels like nobody knows how to respond to when we see those. So there's that side of things which is really challenging in mobile. In terms of the more response-led metrics, absolutely there are gaps in measurement capabilities. The one major thing for me is measuring the impact on driving foot traffic, because as we talk about mobile should be very strong at that and be able to connect from communications to physical retail spaces, but other than the small percentage, measuring people who might redeem a coupon, etc., which is always going to be a small percentage, we don't have a solution for doing that. And I don't have the answer. I would love to, but how can we actually measure the impact of what we're doing in mobile advertising and marketing and driving additional foot traffic to a store, and then ultimately we can also track to sales too. So I think throughout the spectrum, beyond the campaign metrics and even there are still some gaps in mobile. Beyond that, more of the outcomes rather than the outputs when it comes to measurement. I think there's some major challenges that we all need to work on in mobile.
Andy came dangerously close to saying those two words that don't work, but we always try to connect the online world to mobile coupon. Mobile coupon is something that really has never quite taken off, but you'd be amazed how many decks out there still promising they can do it today. You want to jump in there?
Yeah, so we actually have seen a fair amount of adoption. Again, it's light, and you don't see that many people that are doing a lot of it within mobile couponing. In my mind, really when we look at mobile broadly, I do think the grocery space is going to lead the way because you've got high frequencies of purchase, you've got relatively complicated purchases, and you've got massive shopper marketing budgets from the CPG manufacturers. And so I think that even though the grocery retailers tend to not be the most sophisticated marketers in the world, I think that that's where we're actually going to see the most important things happening, because there's the ability to develop habits. It's tough to develop a Best Buy habit because you're there so frequently.
Right. I think it makes a great deal of sense. I mean, the biggest challenge is we have to get beyond the idea of taking that printed coupon and trying to shove it into a phone. I think we're better than that. We have to innovate beyond that. What is the mobile offer? What is the offer that's using my phone to get me into the store? Michael?
Well, just looking at my use cases of customers, you have such a variety of different ways that customers are dabbling in the mobile push space. Most of our customers are just doing very simple programs, especially some of the online brands that incorporate daily deals into their perspective. So I think it's an important distinction that the user has sought you out and has committed to downloading and installing your application on their device. So already they're interested in what you're selling because they've made that commitment to that brand. At that point, about 55% of apps never get opened after that. And applying an effective, albeit simple, push campaign that will drive utilization of the application is very valuable. And in fact, we've seen and have use cases of customers that are depending on our push notifications for their revenue objectives. For the retailers that are more brick and mortar, we definitely see couponing being the first toe dip into the space. Whether it's location-based or whether it's a loyalty program that they want to get to by push notifications. But I see those probably, the daily deal offering through some of the online brands and the couponing is definitely a first step for most of these major retailers.
There are a lot of brands that are still using couponing on mobile, and they're using it with us as well. I mean, just as examples, Victoria's Secret is doing a lot of deals online, pushing through push notifications, also pushing through email. And SMS as well. Companies like American Eagle, you can name a ton of those companies that are successfully doing couponing. Now, if you're able to take those coupons and make sure that those coupons are relevant to the individuals that you're sending it to, the likelihood of higher click-through rates because of relevancy is much higher. Also, with that, if you're sending maybe unique URLs to that person, and if you can track that person through the funnel to an online store, then you can actually track that person through that funnel and adequately measure ROI from that purchase. So, from our perspective, we have seen quite a bit of couponing, and we've seen brands do it very successfully.
Other questions? I'll keep going. Sal, so let me ask you this. So, as a retailer or a brand that's sticking stuff into retail, what's next? What can I start looking for?
A thing that I mentioned before that I'm really bullish on, and it may not be 6 months, maybe a year. I think it's the opportunity to engage with the consumer, and it could be through near-field communication, it could be through another sort of transmedia mobility technology that allows people to engage with the brand. I think the idea is to make it as seamless as possible. So I think there are a few different things that you can do currently, but I think as technology advances and people get more familiar with the smart devices that they're bringing into the store, we'll start to see a lot more of these things become more fruitful opportunities for engagement. But I think the idea in general for a brand is to have the consumer understand that their brand is different than what's next to it, because there's a ton of competition on the shelf space, and I think that it's really about the opportunity to have somebody engage with the brand to understand why it's different from the product next to it.
Can retailers start looking for, decreases in their overall salespeople? I mean, do we need fewer people on the floor now that we're putting more tools in people's hands?
So we've seen it. My first job out of grad school was building payroll budgets for Ames department stores. Who's no longer with us. Walmart drove us out of business, but
We got a few of those.
But at the time, the selling floor accounted for nearly the majority of payroll dollars that went into the store. And really, in the 20-year period that we've seen average hourly rates decrease. We've seen fewer people on the sales floor, and in multi-channel, in the past, it was people at home doing research and forming before they went into the store, often with printed pieces of paper that had the information. To today, where we have mobile devices, the stores have become dependent upon a consumer self-education. When I go to Costco, I know much more about the refrigerator that I might buy there than the guy in the refrigerator department. And retailers have built it into their payroll budgets, and there's no going back.
The funny part is that was always the truth, but now it's just a lot more apparent. It's right in front of you. Could you make the argument that instead of putting that money towards salespeople and developing salespeople the same way, is it better to put that money to technological development?
You could and you should. Most retailers tend to not though. In my retail experience, what we found is that when retailers invest in the website, when they invest in their owned assets, they're looking for an ROI on that owned asset in that environment. So on the website, they built a website, they measure the success of their investment based upon the sales that are generated. They know that there's an offline influence, they can't quantify it, they ignore it, pretend that it's not there, which I think is a huge mistake, but every retailer does it.
Right, so risk aversion ultimately brings us to the next border, folks. I'm sorry. Anybody else want to jump in with me? What do you think the next thing is? What's next? Everybody's sitting here now. They represent different brands, agencies. What should they be looking for and things that they should be investing their money?
I'm not sure it's the channel necessarily. I think it's the content. I think it's the ability to understand who your audience is and the ability to speak to that audience in the right way. Someone earlier today was talking about the audiences not being homogeneous, and I think that's the case for every single brand out there, or most brands out there. And I think that the ability to make sure that the content is relevant and appropriate for every individual in the audience, so that everyone feels like they're the target of the community, I think that that's where the focus is going to be going forward, or one of the focus points going forward.
Clearly, it's everything significantly more relevant. And I'm sorry, that's a terrible play on words. That's his company, relevant. I'm sorry.
It's hard not to use it.
Why don't you double up on the V? It makes it a little different.
Yeah.
You know, I think the other thing that's gonna shake out over the next couple of years is a definition of what are the properties that others are going to become a part of. So for Tide to have an app, maybe you could argue that they should or shouldn't, but clearly Tide should be putting more of its resources towards supporting retail operations that are more consumer-centric, where there's more relevancy to the client. And so that's a relatively obvious case, but I think there are a lot of cases that aren't. And I think there are some really important decisions that CMOs and digital strategists across the land have to figure out is, do we just accept that we are part of a broader ecosystem, figure out how to do that most effectively, or do we really try to engage the consumer and own that other touch point?
I think you're right. You know, apps was the last of the shiny objects before mobile payments. And the thing about apps is every brand manager thought they had to go out there and build their own and spend their money. And they really didn't know what they got themselves into, but that's a separate panel altogether. At the end of the day, there's 700,000 apps now in the iOS store. And you could really make a pretty good argument that it's kind of a graveyard of branded apps that have gone afloat, just gone away. They're sitting out there. You go out and get there. I'm sure that there's lots of brands you never thought of. But do we still have to think about apps? Do we think about apps as in and of themselves or a brand? We have to think about in terms of a retailer?
I think it's more relevant for retail than some brands specifically, because if you look at the retailing apps in space right now, if you look at Walmart, if you look at Walgreens, if you look at a lot of these companies, they are not just doing things that are talking about the products that are in store, but it's more utility-based. It's about picking up your photos in store. It's about getting a coupon or the opportunity to get a coupon, redeem it, and have it attached to your loyalty card. Doing things like picking up prescription at the pharmacy. So I think retailers have not necessarily a better opportunity, but they've been going about it in a better way in the way they approach apps thus far.
Yeah, and I think the way that it impacts our lives, you take somebody like Target, we all agree that that is a mass retailer, but in the iOS store, they're listed in the lifestyle section. And I think that's kind of an appropriate way of how we're living our lives now. I'm going to open up one last time for questions, and then oh wow, now we got a lot. All right, you go first right there.
I'm Hillary Coleman. I work with Andy at NBC. It seems like there's a bit of a disconnect between what the retailers are set up to manage with mobile phones versus how consumers want to be using them in the store. So Craig, you were talking about Victoria's Secret sending a coupon and driving to an online site. I would think if I'm getting a coupon on my mobile phone for Victoria's Secret, I want to walk into Victoria's Secret with that coupon on my mobile phone and redeem it there. So I'm wondering sort of where you guys see those barriers, and do you think that retailers from grocery stores to specialty stores to the big box stores are going to be able to get around that to enable consumers to use their mobile phone at point of purchase with all of these different things that, all these new innovative ways that they're trying to message out to consumers through mobile?
Some companies are sending the coupon codes that work with the existing POS systems, and I think that that works well. And the title of this is Marketing at the Right Time at the Right Place, and like you said, that's pretty much exactly the use case that you want. You don't always want to go to an online store, but you want to also be able to use that coupon code in store. Anyone else?
Yeah, I mean, I see this all the time. Our solution incorporates not just a push message, but actual an inbox, a rich inbox that will be embedded within the application itself. So when the push comes down, you can have rich video, audio, you can have coupons, QR codes embedded within the push, and the experience is retained within that brand's application. So when that marketer sends out that message to the user, the brand can actually take action with that communication and keep that user within the application itself.
I would just add, if you're a brick and mortar retailer, I think, and you may be nervous about Amazon, I think it's just incumbent on you to make the experience as convenient and easy for customers as possible to buy across any of your retail outlets, whether that's physical, whether that's digital. So enabling that for the consumer, making it as quick, easy, convenient as possible for them is going to be going to help those more traditional retailers succeed.
I think all these things start with management and executives inside companies starting to make fundamental changes in how they think about what they do with their businesses. I mean, we're talking about infrastructure, so not just technological. We're talking about building your base for how you start thinking about the next 10 or 15 years. Unfortunately, that's the end of this. We have to stop. I'm getting like 5 minutes in the back. So we'll be here for the next couple of minutes. Feel free to come up and say hi. Thank you.
Tomorrow. Okay. Tomorrow at 12:15, since the issue came up today a couple of times in almost all sessions, there's a panel here at 12:15 that has the person from Catalina Marketing. Catalina Marketing bought a company called Motive a couple months ago. That is a company that did all the QR codes for Stop and Shop and a Hold. And the person who did all that is going to be on the panel, as well as the CEO of Scanlight and the CEO of Spiderlink, the two top QR code companies in North America. So if anyone's interested in codes and scanning and all that, and shopping, what they found at grocery store, which I've written about this in my column at Media Post, they found, Stop Shop found quite a lot, and they were doing this years before smartphones, and they just moved it to smartphones. And I went shopping with them, and I'm kind of a skeptic on a lot of the stuff. And I watched people scan stuff with phones and get coupons and actually self-checkout with phones and beat all the other people in the line. So they are in fact doing it, even though not everyone has seen it. So you'll see a lot of experience in that tomorrow at 12:15. Now, most importantly, the cocktail reception is it's complimentary for everybody here, and it's on the 5th floor. You're now on the 7th floor. So just go down 2, and we'll see you there. Thank you very much. Thank you.